Hey everyone, I'm going to be teaching you how to make this looping animation together in After Effects. So this is part 1 of a 2-part series, so be on the lookout for the next video, and go ahead and download the source files, which are in the video description. In this tutorial, we're going to be making this layered illustration. This is a cozy loop. We've got a character that blinks, who looks up and down from her book, and we also have some candles flickering. I'm going to walk you through all the steps of this animation, but before we get started, you want to definitely go down to the video description and download this file. I'll give you both the completed and the start file in this one After Effects file, so download the After Effects file, open it up in After Effects, and try to follow along with me if you can. Let's get started. Let's start with a short tour of the file here. So what I have opened up here is the main timeline of the finished version of this file. So this is in the completed file. The main timeline is what I have open here. So as you can see, if I stop it playing, what we have is an adjustment layer up here at the top, a couple of those. We have the layered artwork here, and we have a solid. That's just our background for this. If I double click on this layered artwork file, you can see all of the pieces of the animation and how they work together. And as you can see, I have about 10 seconds of animation going on in here. Adjustment layer, that's our flame flickers on our candles. I have the head rotating up and down, branch rotating and moving around, and I have the branch 2 bending with a puppet effect going. So this is what we're going to be making together today. So let's go ahead and click on the main timeline of the start file. This one is all cleared out for us. So we've got about 10 seconds to work with, and we have the layered artwork file that we're going to go inside of. So when you're thinking about making a loop, try to make it in increments of seconds that make sense to you. For instance, I've done 10 seconds for this. I want it to elapse 3 times in order to be 30 seconds. Go inside of the layered file here, and we'll start with the setup. Okay, this is our head. I've already moved the center point down here to the bottom. If you ever wanted to change the center point of an object, grab the pan behind tool and you can move that center point wherever you want. So we want the center point to be in the middle of the neck like this. If I select the head and I hit R on the keyboard, I can rotate that head around, but oh no, our eyes aren't moving with our head. What we need to do is to parent these things together that belong together. This little drop down called parent and link, and we're going to parent the eyes to the head. We're going to navigate to head in the drop down menu right next to eyes. You can see now that it says head. The head needs to be with it, the hair also needs to be with it, and you should be able to select head as your parent. And what's great is if I move my parent around, all the rest of the components, the hair and the eyes, are going to move with the head. When you want something to move with something else, what you do is make it a child of that thing by adding the item that you want to base your motion on as the parent. Let's make the head rotate up and down and make our first keyframes. R on the keyboard brings up rotation. Keyframe the rotation like it is, and let's say about 2 seconds in is when I want to start moving my head. Create a keyframe. If you click on this little diamond over here, it'll make a new keyframe for you. I'm going to move my cursor to about 3 seconds to tilt that head down. And now I'm going to move it forward to 4 seconds. Copy this keyframe and paste it over here. So I copied this one, pasted it over here, so it just returns to its original position. I've got that moving up and down. So I've started with 3 degrees here. Let's move it up to like 6. So our head's really bending down now. We've got our head tilting forward, looking at our book. Let's have it stay there just a little bit longer before we move back up. So I'm going to copy and paste this keyframe here. And now we've got a head tilting down, stays there for a minute, and then it starts to move back up. So you can adjust the timing until you're happy with it, and you can have it do this as many times as you want in your 10 seconds. So we've got our head tilting back and forth. We already have the blinks on our eyes going. I left that in there for you. Let's do the flames next. Press Command plus, and if I hit the spacebar, if I hold spacebar, I can actually scoot my composition around, which is a nice tooltip for you. Flame number 3 is the one that we're going to be concentrating on first. Select flame number 3. We're into our effects and presets panel. And we're going to type in wave. What we're going to start with is the warp effect. I'm going to drag and drop this onto the flame, and it's going to get a little crazy. It's not really moving in the way that we really want it to. We want it to be moving more like this and less like that. So let's edit the effect settings on this one. And once we get the effect settings right for this one, we can just copy and paste this effect onto the other flames. The wave direction is currently set to 90 degrees. Let's change that to 0 over here in effects settings. So we change that to 0. We also want the wave width to be a little bit smaller. Let's try 10. This is just something that you want to test out. And the wave height, let's change that to like 5. Wave width doesn't seem to look very good at 10, so let's change that to 20. And let's try the wave height being 2. Okay, so that's starting to move a little bit more like a flame. You can adjust how quickly this wave moves, how high it is, and how wide it is. So now we have a flickery little flame. It's moving like this. So I'm going to try changing the pinning point. Right now the pinning is in the center. Let's try pinning it on its bottom edge. Now the bottom of our flame stays still while the rest of it moves. Adjust your flame until you're happy with the way that it looks. Let's speed up the wave a little bit. So right now it's at 1. Let's do 1.5. So that's moving kind of like a candle flame. So now that we have that adjusted for this one, let's just copy and paste this effect onto the other ones. Select the other two at once, and I'm going to paste this onto these two. Now we have a problem. See, our waves are moving perfectly together, which really doesn't look right because a flame is supposed to look random. We can fix that. Let's select flame number 2. We can change the face to where my flame looks a little different. Same thing for the other one. Select flame number 1 and adjust the phase backwards a little. And so now, as you can see, now they're moving slightly differently from one another, how we would expect a flame to move, a little bit randomly. So we have our flames moving around. The next thing that we're going to concentrate on is to make a glowing effect on top of our fire. And we're going to need an adjustment layer to do that. So in order to make an adjustment layer, what we need to do is to go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And that's in a menu that's up at the top. So Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And we want that to show up on top of everything. I'm going to rename that layer Glow. And we're just going to put a mask on it around our little flames and add an effect to it. So it's going to look really bad for a second here. I'm going to go into the effects and presets and type glow. And as you can see, we've got a few different glows. We want the one that says stylize glow. So I'm going to drag that onto my effects layer. And as you can see, it's a pretty gnarly effect if you don't turn it down a little bit. So the glow threshold needs to come down a little bit. And the glow intensity definitely needs to come down. There we go. So all we really want is a increase in exposure around those little flames. And don't worry, we're going to add a mask to it. So in order to add a mask, all we really need to do is to select our layer. And we're going to add a mask by selecting the ellipse tool up here in the shapes panel. And let's zoom in and draw a mask on here. So here we go. As you can see now, our glow effect is only happening around our candle. So be careful when you're drawing your mask. Try to keep it in a circle shape. I kind of made mine a little oval. Let's place 2 other masks onto our other 2 candles. So here we have our mask. Let's copy and paste it. We can select the mask by, we can click on the mask to select it and then hit Command D to duplicate the mask. Now I can just use my arrow keys, I'm just holding in Shift by the way, to move this down to the other flame. Do that one more time, Command D, move this down to the other flame. So right now our effect has a really hard edge on it. So if I zoom in, you can see that that is a pretty stark edge. So I would like for that to be a little softer. So let's edit the settings for our masks in order to make it a bit softer. So the mask feather is right here, and if I select all three of the masks at once, like this, okay, then I can change the feathering for all three of them at once. So let's put like a feather of 20 pixels on our mask, and now you can see it's got a much softer edge to it. So let's zoom out, and it's a little hard to see the effect with the masks turned on, but if I flick this on and off, there's a little FX button, so you can actually see the glow around the candles. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is to animate this adjustment layer to where it looks like the candle is glowing. So this we can do with transparency. If I select my glow layer and I hit T on the keyboard, what I get is the opacity panel. So the opacity panel, I'm just going to animate by adding some keyframes to it. Let's start around second 1. Click on the opacity at 100%, hit spacebar and let it go forward in time a tiny bit. And now what we want to do is to take that down to something like 25%. And then we want to copy that 100% keyframe and paste it right here. So now what that's going to do is to make the candles look like they're glowing, they're emitting light. It's nice and subtle. We can make it happen a little bit quicker by sliding these keyframes a little bit closer together, which might make it look a little bit more dramatic. We can also increase the glow effect if we want to. So let's go in here to the 2-second mark so we can see what's happening, and increase the glow radius. Let's try 0.3. Yeah, there we go. So now we have our candles glowing in a loop. So now that we have our candles flickering and moving, let's try doing some subtle motion with the 2 little plants that are in this pot here. So we have our little branch 1 and branch 2. I've already gone to the trouble of moving the rotation point down to the bottom for you. Just FYI, if you want to move a rotation point, you need your pan behind tool. As you can see, I can change the center point of this leaf here. So what we're going to be doing is rotating these, and we'll just keyframe them. The keyboard command for selecting rotate is R on the keyboard. You could also open up all of the different properties down here in the bottom, but I find it's easier to isolate them by using the keyboard. So this is our branch number 1, and if I hit R on the keyboard, you can see that it's already rotated a little bit. So what I'm going to do is skip back to second 1, move forward in time, and I'm going to change the rotation. Alright, so that concludes part 1, and we will pick up this tutorial right where we left off, making the little swaying branches in the next one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.